the thing that I've noticed that we played a clip of you talking about if Theo Von had an opportunity to interview Hitler. That was very funny.
Thank you.
And we have a clip, I don't think we'll play it right now, of you on the Howie Mandel show, talking, which has been traveled a little bit, about talking about the sort of anti-woke contingency comedy.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that, but it's what I find fascinating, and it was really, I feel like Howie Mandel was not prepared for that conversation.
Well, he's like a classic late boomer who, they lock into just the surface ideas, which is shallow, and they don't have any conversation deeper than that. And it's not uncommon. He's not living in the world of discourse or even politics. He's a rich guy that's sort of like, I just want to stay busy. And then, they all get this kind of like, well, people should be able to say whatever. It's like that. It's not even about that anymore. I mean,
was it ever, though? I mean, it's not like you're going to get taken off. This is not like Lenny Bruce getting arrested. It's just about audiences saying, hey, man, I don't like what you're doing.
Well, it's about it's just straight up about representation in marginalized communities, vulnerable people. And it's like we don't have to break it all down, but and I know it was never just about the words, but ultimately these guys were marks for the right-wing propaganda machine and absorbed by their agenda and spearheaded, what was in their eyes, I talk about in the special, this ability to say words they wanted to say, but they used anti-woke to dismantle all progressive policy for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's partially on them, and I can't separate it. Whether they were willing collaborators or just grifting for themselves. I mean, it's like fuck them.
It was interesting when he said that he doesn't think comedians have that kind of power. Literally the day before stories come out about the White House wanting to ask Joe Rogan to please stop talking about Epstein, and let's talk about, because the thing that I find fascinating about this era, aside from the sort of the right-wing influence with these comedians, is when we were on Air America, when we first joined in 2004, there was a complete, not total, but a pretty complete lack of comedians being political. Like literally all of the people who were political in comedy probably worked at Air America, as a writer. Crimmins was there at that time, and it's completely different now. I mean, it changed over the course of, I don't know if it was from social media or the nature of the world, but I just remember in 2004, 2005, the intense pressure from Janine's management, my management at that time was like, what are you doing now? Are we done with this? Or, and other comedians going like, what are you doing?
I think that I really think that political comedy in general was always a niche thing. And the guys that did it, I mean, historically, there's only a handful at any one time. And most of the politics, going on, most of the political comics of that time who were strictly political, who do that, I mean, just to say political comic, it's kind of boring. And I don't know that I was ever a political comic, but it has been my responsibility to myself to address it for at least a portion of the show, to show where I stand and offer my perspective on that, whether you agree with it or not, or whether it's well informed or not. But I never considered myself a political comic. And in the last three specials, they're almost structured like that there's going to be this section where I'm going to deal with that. And then we do the other stuff, personal, dark stuff that's a little lighter. But political comedy, I mean, even back in the 80s, dude, I mean, remember it was like Will Durst, Jimmy Tingle, Barry Crimmins, and that was it.
But I'm not talking about political comedians. I'm talking about comedians actually even engaging in politics.
Yeah, but people don't like it. It requires an engagement with the narrative, and then once you sort of parse that, how do you make that funny? Comedians in general, I'm not saying all of them, but they're and most people now, they don't have a big picture. They have a reactive engagement with bits and pieces of shit that, pop their endorphins, and then they repeat clickbait. And yet the depth of it is not understood. And now you have comics. The other shift too with the right-wing political comics is that there's a blurring of the line of comic and commentator or influencer. All of a sudden, within the last 10 years, you have comedians who are like, talking about, China relations. And it's like, okay, I guess that's part of the job. I don't know when that happened, but
I mean,
what?
I mean, Air America was certainly
so we
part of
did
it.
it. Another thing, it's our fault. Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with it. Obviously, that's what I do. I don't know that I'm a comedian. I feel like
You're
I'm
not.
more of like a political commentator who's mildly amusing.
You're very funny.
But I think, what interests me more is that we started in a time where showbiz people, including comedians, were almost actively disinterested. And over the course of that time, it's very different.
Yeah, but it was always a divisive thing. I mean, the idea was that, if you're going to be an entertainer, why alienate this group of people? I mean, it was always calculated. It wasn't, it's not some mystery. And also, to speak in depth about politics, I'm usually over my head, and it's taken me a long time to just be broad enough from however much I'm informed to make statements that I think are based in my beliefs. I mean, when I was on Air America, or even on our show, I was out of my depth in a lot of ways, just with, keeping on top of the narrative and being able to sort of critically understand it. So I don't claim to do that. But I think a lot of people now, because of the advent of never-ending bullshit information, they claim that they can do that. And the right wing has opened up the sort of expanded the minds of fairly shallow people into believing that they can debate, that they have a point of view, and that it's based in this very slippery slope of evolving bullshit that gets them worked up. So in terms of the left, I don't know. I think in the special, I did a pretty good job of trying to sort of balance and take a few shots at myself and vis-a-vis the people in the audience who are mostly, leftists or, lefty people. And I think it sort of worked. But I don't know. We're not known to be hilarious,
Wait, what? What do you mean?
You
and I?
No. I'm just saying that when you have like the idea of like a political comic, when we were doing Air America, without naming names, there were like 2 or 3 people that were doing, lefty political comedy. And it is so niche and almost impossible to make entertaining or to make mainstream. The only thing I can say about what I've been doing over the last decade or two in terms of the comedy is that I know that this special has a point of view politically, does not provide, I'm not being self-righteous or trying to answer questions, but I do know that it is a mainstream special, that I believe there's something in there for everybody. And whether that'll deliver the message to people that won't hear it, that's not the issue.
Yeah, I'm not talking about political comedians as a different species. I'm talking more about comedians being politics. Yeah.
And now they totally are. But now we got a problem. I mean, until people realize and adjust to the fact that we're living in an authoritarian country, which I don't think a lot of people, again, big picture, don't frame it that way.
No.
But then it becomes, there's a self-censorship that happens. And the thing I was saying right after he was elected is like, dude, it was, 75 million against 77.5 million. It's not like, you have to censor yourself. You're going to be talking to a room that at worst is going to be 50-50. So why are you going to lose your balls now?
You mean in terms of like people who are arguing against? Well, I mean,
that's right.
we're living in an authoritarian era, and I think that casts a pall on a lot of people in ways that they're probably not even necessarily conscious about. I mean,
Well, they're conscious of fear.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
The self-censoring.
And they shut up. It is self-censoring, and it's hard to get over. But if you're playing in, like, well, I have an audience now, fine. But if I'm at the Comedy Store, and again, I'm not, running around doing clubs, but I am sometimes. But now, after a certain point, most people know who you are and what you do. But I think in a general way, especially in Los Angeles, to kind of keep working those muscles of pushing the envelope a little bit politically, you'll sort of see it's that in the opening of the special. It's very clear that when I do the ironic take on how great America is now, most people know it is not.
Right.
Most rational people, and I'm talking about the other 150 million people that didn't vote. They know that it's scary and bad, and they're afraid to sort of, I think, acknowledge it to themselves. So when you release a little bit through laughter, I can hear that they're like, yeah, it's fucked up. Now, and I will continue to say that the people that think this is exactly how America should be going they're bad people. There's like, even if they're single issue Republican voters, it's like, well, look what you did.
Yep.
And so, and I think that's funny to most of the other people, but the power of the propaganda on all levels, just because it feeds itself now, is really breaking people's brains, and they're probably on some level kind of legitimately afraid. I mean, it's not getting any less scary in terms of being a public person, like I mean, it's a lot. And if you're going to talk about it, you are going to feel a target on you, whether it's from within or outside yourself. But they're both equally as detrimental.
Yeah, I know you do some touring, but can you, I imagine on some level now your audience is sort of self-selected, so it's a little bit tougher for you to sense, like, has there been a marked change in people's perspective on that question of whatever it is, authoritarianism, or what they're sensitive to, or have you noticed that over the years?
Well, I think what happened for me, and what kind of led me to the decision I made to, instead of be general about, my political insights or what's happening culturally, in a way where, the jokes are detached, that over, and just is sort of me saying them in a provocative way, over the course of touring after this Trump election, I realized that, I would be going to some red states, but I would be selling, 800 to 1,100 tickets. And the people that came were like me. They were scared. They're isolated, a lot of them. They're surrounded, by people that you no longer know what your neighbor thinks, or what's dangerous for you to say, just in a community level. Some of them, are just on their phones in despair with whoever they're living with. And the feeling of the crowds was that, holy shit, I'm providing a community service here. These people would not all get together in this area for any reason. Maybe some of them are motivated to go to a town hall or whatever, but they're all here and they're all like-minded. And that, this is, this is a safe space, because you're talking about people that are at work and they don't know if they can talk,
Right.
They don't know if they can talk, to the teachers at the school. So once I started to feel that, I realized that in this special, in the opening 15 minutes, that I am going to be part of that community and speak to them directly about their flaws and about where we're at, to relieve some fear and to have some self-reflection and get some laughs. So I was specifically talking to them because I thought that was important.
So how long do you think it's going to be until you start another podcast or restart WTF after that?
Well, I would never restart WTF. I won't do anything like the WTF without Brendan involved, because, he's half of it for real. Our relationship as,
I mean, really half? I mean, do you think like maybe 55%, I would say even?
Sure. I'll give him 70. I don't care. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't work without him. And, it seems to what I've learned over the course of it is that a lot of people, for a while there, you're like, well, they're just here for the interviews. But a lot of people were there. It's really a show about me, mostly. And people are invested.
Is that true?
I know. Kind of. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So people have been kind of invested in how I talk and how I think and what's gone on in my life. So I think that there is that part of me that's about 20% of like, I kind of have a responsibility to those people because, they're not unlike me. It's not easy getting through the day because of your brain and stuff. So if I do anything, I don't believe it would be an interview show, but if there was a way for me to show up maybe on, Instagram Live, or if I jumped into one of these existing podcast networks to do like a video thing, it would probably be, just me, but I'd have to sort of take the ego hit of starting from that point and figure out what that is. But I'm not in a hurry to do that. But I imagine I'll show up on Instagram Live.
The narrow group of people who listen to the upfront monologue.
Yeah, it's a lot though.
I mean,
yeah, I know.
I'm talking about
sure, but even that small amount of people is probably dwarfs how many people listen to your show. I mean, on any given day.
My favorite part of when I came out to do your TV show. We did that episode on the podcast, the patent troll. When we were getting sued by the guy who supposedly patented podcast. My favorite part of doing your show was adding a line about skipping over your monologue in your podcast. I think it sort of became less and less in a weird way, because I used to get a lot of emails. Is that what Brendan would tell you?
No, I used to get a lot of emails from people who were like, I used to skip it, but now I kind of look forward to it. So I think that
I don't know if you can really measure that. I got to tell you,
dude, you could barely listen to me when I was sitting next to you when we were doing a show. You can barely listen to me now.
I'm not talking about me. I'm just saying that I know that when I directed Gary Busey, we would send him fake emails to essentially influence what he would do in the show. And
so you're saying Brendan has been running this fake email. He would not take the time to do that.
No, he wouldn't. But there were times where he would ask me, like, do you know anybody who's looking for a gig to just write?
Wouldn't require anything. You just have to make a Gmail account.
Just a couple of emails.
And I'll send them the copy. Yeah. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that there is part of me that is ready to stop, which is good.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.